Your DNA has hundreds of thousands of markers, but each company uses a different set of those markers. So is there any way that you can combine them all to get a better match set? Howdy, I'm Andy Lee with Family History Fanatics, and this is a segment of DNA. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to be notified about upcoming episodes. If you've ever wondered if there's a way that you can get a better match set, then today is the day that I'm going to show you how. If we look at the different DNA kits, they each use a different set of SNPs from your DNA. Now there's some overlap between each one of the companies, but there's also a lot of original SNPs that no other company is using. So I had the idea of actually combining all of these into one kit that I then was going to upload to GEDmatch and start using that as my major matching kit because it would be the one with the most information. Let me show you how I went about doing this. Today I'm going to be using Google Docs and the Sheets function in Google Docs to do this, but I would actually caution and suggest that you use Excel or OpenOffice or Apple Pages when you're doing the full thing, because today all I'm going to be doing is one chromosome, and I'm doing the smallest chromosome. As you get to the larger chromosomes, there is so much information in there that it will overwhelm Google Docs, and the very first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to separate things out by chromosome because you can't have all of it for all of these tests in one tab. So that's the very first thing that you want to do, is you want to import your data into your spreadsheet, and you want to divide out the chromosomes so that they're all on separate tabs. Now in this case, as we're looking at this file, you can see that, hey, this first one is my 23andMe kit, and then this next one is my Ancestry kit, and then we have the Living DNA kit, and finally we have the MyHeritage kit. Now, some people may ask, why didn't I use FamilyTreeDNA? And the reason is because FamilyTreeDNA and MyHeritage use the exact same microarray chip, and so the information on them is identical. So if I included FamilyTreeDNA, then almost all of that information is going to get deleted out anyway because it's going to be a duplicate of something I already have on there. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go through and clean this up a little bit. And what I'm going to do first is for each one of these, I'm going to delete this intro part that tells a little bit about what this all is. And so I'm going to just delete these cells, shift this up, and then I'm going to add a little company moniker just so I can keep track of where the different data is coming from. And this one is 23andMe. And so what I'm going to do is just copy 23 down throughout the entire thing. I'll make the columns just a little bit narrower because they don't need to be so big. And now my 23andMe data is almost done. I'm going to go through and I'm going to color code everything so that it's also visually easy to see where this information came from. For 23andMe, I'm going to use this nice pink color. On to Ancestry, I just want to delete this opening part, shift the cells up. Now Ancestry is interesting because they have their information divided out into two separate columns. So I actually need to do a function to combine these two together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a column, and then I'm going to type in my formula that's going to combine these two, and that is concat, and then I type in these two cells, or I just highlight them. And you can see that that is the same thing, and then I copy that all the way down. Now, one thing I want to do here is right now there's just a formula in there. I want to just have the actual value in there. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste the values of this. So now you can see when I go and look at that, it is actually showing just the values. It's not showing a formula. That allows me to delete these two columns, and I can add my company, and that's going to be Ancestry. I'll just do an AN for Ancestry. And then I can go through and I can hopefully find the bottom, and I can color all of these. And these are going to be Ancestry's green. Now that I've colored all of them, I'm I'm going to actually copy those. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my 23andMe, and I'm going to paste all of that information down there at the bottom. So now I have all of my ancestry and my 23andMe in one column. And I can delete out the old ancestry. Let's do the same thing for living DNA. You can see I'm already up to over 20,000 rows total. So this is going to get up probably into 30,000 maybe. For MyHeritage, same thing. Now again, if you're doing this in Google Docs for some of the larger chromosomes, then it's going to overwhelm Google Docs. And so you might want to do this in Excel or Pages or OpenOffice. But the functions are basically going to be the same. The steps are going to be the same that you have to do. So there, I can delete all these extra columns. And now I have all of my information in one single column. But so far they're not in order. So let's actually get this in order. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of headers here for some formulas that I'm going to be using to sort out the stuff that are duplicates that I don't need. And I'm just going to bold this, and then I'm going to freeze that first row. So that way, as I scroll through, it's not going to go. So right now I have each company stacked on top of each other. What I want to do is I actually want to go and I want to sort everything by the position. Because again, we're talking about one chromosome. So when I sort by position, it's going to put everything in order. There, so now it's sorted by position. You can actually see that living DNA has the first bunch of them before you start getting into some of these multicolored ones. And if you just scroll through, you can see that different companies actually focused sometimes on different areas of the chromosome, but for the most part, they have a pretty good spread all throughout the chromosome. So our next step is we want to remove the duplicates that are all the same call. And by call, what I mean is these two letters that indicate what that part of the DNA is. One thing you might notice if you're scrolling down through is that there's some patterns to how this is called. Now the computer really doesn't care which letter comes first because it doesn't know which chromosome that letter is from. So we actually need to standardize some of these things. For instance, when I go and I take a look here, I can see that there is a 2 dashes or 2 zeros, which means it's a no call. It couldn't figure out what it was. An AA, an AC, an AG, an AT. Then there's a CA. Well, that CA is actually the same thing as an AC. And as I continue to go down, I can see that there's a DD, which means a deletion, or an I, which is an insertion. But then there's GA, which is the same as AG, GC, which is the same as CG, and on down through it. So I actually want to take some of these ones that are really the same as something else, and I want to swap them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just highlight this column, and I'm going to do a replace. So the first thing that I want to replace is I want to replace this 00 with a dash dash. And that means it's going to be a no call. I click on this and it says, hey, it found 10 instances that it did this. And then I'm going to do the last one, which is TG, and replace it with GT. And then I'm done. So now I've actually simplified what this is, and I've made it easier for the computer to sort out whether or not it is identical. So we want to first remove all of the duplicates that are the exact same call. So we need to find them. And what that means is that this column matches this column. Now, since these are in order, we're really just looking for the one that's right above it. So we're going to write a formula here, which is going to be equal, and it's going to be an if statement. So if this C2 is equal to C1, then we're going to do another if statement. And if D2 is equal to D1, then we're going to call that a match. And I'm just going to use 1 as my match. And then I can put 0 as a no match. And so if C2 doesn't match C1, then that is a no match as well. I'm going to copy this formula all the way down the spreadsheet. And now I'll easily be able to find every single one of my matches, all of the duplicates. So if I go and I remove just the zeros so that I'm only looking at the ones, these should all be my matches. And I can go and I can just count up real quickly how many total matches there were. And there was almost 19,000 of them. Which, if you're looking down here, there's 41,000, 42,000 lines total. So 19,000 is almost half of all the lines are matches. Which is really what we expect. Because again, each one of these companies, they use a set of SNPs and there's some overlap between each of the companies. So we can go through now and we can delete all of these duplicates. And I'm just going to highlight all those rows and I'm going to delete those rows. And almost half of my file will be gone, but the half that's gone is just the duplicates. And there you go. It has deleted all that information. And now what we want to do is we want to show what is left. Now we're going to go through and we're going to actually delete this formula because we're going to redo it. But all of the duplicates that had the exact same call have now been deleted. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go through and we want to look for any duplicates that are a no call from one company so that we keep the other company's information. So for instance, let's go and just take a look at our different no calls here. So we have a couple of no calls here from Living DNA. And as we just scroll down, we have a place right here where there is a no call from MyHeritage, but 23andMe has a call. So in this case, we want to keep the 23andMe information and get rid of the MyHeritage information. Now again, we can do this by using a formula. And it's going to be pretty similar. First thing we want to do is we're going to be looking at if. And we're going to look at, same thing, the position, and see if that position is equal to the position above it. And then we're going to look at the no call. We're going to see if this value is equal to that no call. Then we want to put a 1. And then we can say 0 for the others. And this will be 0 as well. And so there's our formula. And we copy that all the way down through. Now remember, the first time we ended up with 19,000 of these matches. For this one, it's going to be a whole lot less because there's not going to be near as many no calls. So in this case, there's 537, which is not near as much as 19,000. We want to delete all of these. So I highlight all of them, and then I'm just going to delete those rows. And it's all deleted now. So I can go back through and I can see this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these zeros. You can see that there's still some places where there are some no calls, but that's not going to hurt anything. And so I'm just going to leave those no calls as is right now. So we get on to our next step, and that is we need to compare those same positions that actually have different calls. So let's say, for instance, one company calls it an AA and another company calls it an AC. Well, in this case, we have to decide which one we're going to select. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. If you have multiple kits, 3 or 4 kits, you can actually see, do 2 companies call it one thing and one company calls it something else? Or, if you want to just choose, I'm going to always choose Ancestry to be my primary one or 23andMe to be my primary one. That's another way that you can do that. And so in this case, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to choose 23andMe to be my primary one. And so I'm going to actually use a similar formula again to the last 2. It's going to be equals if, and I want to compare the position first. So C2 equal to C1. And then I just want to call it 1 because if those positions are the same, then it is a match that has a different call. And since I know that the 23andMe one is going to come before any of the other companies, I'm just going to keep the 23andMe. So there's a 1 right there. and there is a 0 right there. And what this will do is now all of these ones will be ones that the companies had a different call, but I'm going to keep the 23andMe one. Let's take a look at how many of these we have. So remember, we started off with 19,000 duplicates, and then we had another 500 from the no calls. And now what we're going to see is how many of these ones we have. And there's about 225 of these ones. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete all of these. Deleting them the same way that I've deleted everything else, just highlighting all those rows and then deleting them. There, and now it's all deleted. I can go back, and now what I should have is I should have everything that doesn't have any kind of duplicate. And so each one of these is going to represent a unique SNP all the way throughout the file. You can see that it's combined with everything. Some companies are going to have more information in there, and in this case 23andMe is probably going to have the most because they were the primary company that I chose. And as you're looking through, you can actually see there's very little of that orange, which was MyHeritage. And that's because most of that MyHeritage stuff ended up being duplicates on one of the other 3 companies' kits. But at this point, I am ready now to delete my formula columns. And if I want to, I can actually delete my company column as well, because on this next step, what you're going to do is, remember, you're doing this for each one of the chromosomes, all on a different tab. We now need to get these all together. And so the first thing to do is to export it. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to export it probably as a comma separated file or as a tab separated file. So what I want to do is I just want to call this, we'll call it chromosome 21, and I'm going to end up having 22 of these files in the end. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go and I want to open that file in Notepad. I don't want to open it in Word. I want it in Notepad or some sort of text editor. And you can see this is what it's going to look like. It's going to have the format that's very similar to what that original file that you downloaded from each one of the company's websites has. Then all I'm going to do is for every one of these, I'm going to highlight all of the chromosome 21. I'm not going to highlight the headers, and I'm going to copy that and put that into a master file on Notepad. So that way I can combine all 22 of those chromosomes into one file. And at that point, you have a master file. Save it as a TXT file, and then you can upload that to GEDmatch. Now, why would you want to upload that into GEDmatch? Well, let me show you what the difference is. So right here, what I did is I went into GEDmatch and I looked at my Ancestry kit. And on my Ancestry kit, I went through and I pulled out some of the matches that it had. Now, one of the important things that GEDmatch can tell you is the amount of overlap, and this is the number of SNPs that it is using to compare with some other kit. Now, really, the more SNPs that it can compare, the more accurate it's going to be as far as the match and as far as how much centimorgans and how close that match is to you. So we can actually compare here between these two matches. I have my Superkit and I have my Ancestry kit. And you'll notice that, hey, when we're just looking at overlap, some of these, they don't increase that much. Like for instance, this first one, it only increased by about 20,000 on the overlap. However, some of these increased a lot. This one down here went from 178,000 to 302,000. So it increased by 125,000 SNPs, almost twice as many SNPs as what the other one had. One thing that you'll notice is there was actually one match that my Superkit was able to find that my Ancestry kit did not find. So by having this Superkit, you are able to find more matches because it has more information to be able to compare to. Another interesting thing is there was this one kit, and I don't know what company that it had been uploaded from, but it went from 134,000 on the overlap to 234,000 on the overlap. But most importantly, it went from total of 12.4 centimorgans when comparing it to the Ancestry kit to almost 21.6 centimorgans, and that's really because that much overlap allowed more information to be shown. Now here's one that the overlap didn't actually have that much of a difference. From Borland Genetics, this kit had only 194,000 SNPs of overlap on the Ancestry kit, and it went double. It went up to almost 400,000 SNPs on the Superkit. Yet the centimorgans for both of them is the exact same. So it's not always going to increase the amount of shared DNA that you have with somebody, but in some cases it will, just because of that SNP set that the different kits use. So if you have a little bit of savvy with spreadsheets, I would encourage you to make yourself a Superkit and upload it to GEDmatch. And you will find that, one, you'll be able to actually get all of those matches without having to look at each one of the kits to find those one-offs that some of the other kits weren't doing. But two, your matches are going to be more accurate because you have more information. Just as a reference point, my Superkit ended up with 1.5 million SNPs total in the kit, whereas the most that I had before was my 23andMe kit, which the version 3 I believe has just over 900,000 SNPs. So I had more than 50% more SNPs by combining all of my kits into one Superkit. Now if you have any questions about how to make a Superkit, put it in the comments below and I'll try to answer it. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.